on. And there are a couple of people who've come along here today who are explorers and miners and potential producers, etc., who would have loved to have had the opportunity to come up and have a chat. So we've got approximately 7 minutes up our sleeve before our first official presentation, because Rox had to cancel for reasons that they'll get around to explaining lately. So we found Rob Spackman outside, and he was one of the gentlemen that wanted to have the opportunity to talk to you all before. So team, we're going to Brazil for a little while. Have any of you been to Brazil? No? Okay, well, your portfolio can go to Brazil. Rob was in Brazil for a while, weren't you?
Yeah, actually, the first time I went to Brazil was 2006, actually.
Why did you go to Brazil?
Oh, I had another company that we were working with. It's like I can talk really loud as well if it's required. But look, I went there with another company looking for gold, Proterozoic gold in Brazil, found 2.5 million ounces, and a couple of projects that went really well. Had an iron ore project that got into production as well. Yeah. Left that project in 2018, came back to Australia for a couple of years, and then most recently I picked up this project called Palma, which is in the central part of Brazil. The company's called Alvo. We listed a year ago, almost to the day. We started drilling 2 days after we listed, and we haven't stopped. So it's a pretty exciting and emerging story.
Right. So I did a bit of speed reading in between walking up the corridor and coming in here. One of the first articles that I picked up said, stocks to butter your bread with. And this was one of them. Why are you a stock that we're going to be able to butter our bread with?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, that was a Stockhead article that was written yesterday. We put some great results out 2 days ago. High grade copper, zinc, a little bit of lead, a little bit of silver, some gold. Shallow, it's a resource that's growing at the moment. So we've got 2 diamond rigs out there. We're drilling. We've been putting out results for the last 12 months. And yeah, I don't know how we can butter our bread with copper and zinc, but you know.
We want to butter. We're going to buy a lure pack, aren't we? We're not going to buy Coles brown butter. We want to buy lure pack butter with what we get from your company. That is our plan. So tell us about the area in Brazil. Is it a fairly stable area as far as the political climate, etc.?
Look, Brazil's becoming one of the most, I guess, desirable places in South America at the moment. There's political unrest in Chile and Peru. There's currency issues in Argentina. No offence to our previous speakers, but where we are is sort of quite close to the capital city called Brasilia, about 4 hours north. It's flat farming area. That's a picture taken from the town where we're operating. So it's definitely not in the Amazon. It's a really easy place to operate in terms of the great infrastructure. We're surrounded by hydroelectric power. We have roads. There's train lines within 30 k's. So any potential development of the project is actually going to be really, you know, it's got a few boxes ticked already.
Historically, what mines were there historically where you are?
Oh, where we are, we're north. We're about 50 k's north of some of the biggest nickel mines in Brazil. Anglo American have been operating there for 70 or 80 years. This area was first explored for nickel back in the 1970s. So the project was actually found by the Brazilian Geological Survey back in 1978. And they were looking for nickel. What they did was they found some copper and zinc, went in there, did some drilling, and basically stopped working in 1985, and then sat on the asset since that time. So they did over 30,000 metres of diamond.
And that's because copper and zinc wasn't sexy back then, correct?
That's because they're a geological survey and they didn't really have the setup to go mining. Yeah. So they found all these projects and they sat on them, and they decided to start auctioning them off in 2019. This was the first project that was ever auctioned in Brazil. So yeah, pretty excited by that.
So what is your, I mean, I'm just looking at the things. No, I haven't got an MD or anything like that. What is your actual title at Alvo? What do you do there? What is your role?
Yeah, I'm the MD. So I found the asset with one of my fellow directors, Bo Nichols, probably 5-6 years ago. They started showing the asset around, and we watched it and waited for it to come to auction. We bought it in October 2019, signed the deal in February 2020, just before COVID hit. And had to pay a big sum of money to secure the asset, and then we sat and waited for COVID to blow over. Which, you know, thankfully it's been it's in the rearview mirror now. But yeah, there was some times there that we were a bit nervous.
So what are you looking at as far as terms of production potentially turning into a viable ongoing concern? What's the time frame like?
Look, it's an asset that's got a JORC compliant resource on it. We've put that together for the IPO. It's about 5 million tonnes, just over 1% copper, some significant zinc in it, and lead, silver, gold. We've done 13,000 metres of diamond this year. We've probably just done a couple of 1,000 metres of RC drilling as well. I would expect that our drilling will continue all throughout next year, and then we'll look at how we can develop it after that. But we're pushing towards a 10 million tonne kind of inventory, and if we can get to that, it's quite a significant grade. So it'll be a great project.
Are there any questions from anyone? Do you want to have a bit of an ask from anyone out there? Anyone do you have anything that I have forgotten or had not pointed out? No, because I know that you're interested in this project. Go on, is there anything in particular that I have not asked that you think needs to be asked of this man? I put it on the spot. How about you, Mr. Atkins? Anything you'd like to know about Brazil and your money going to Brazil?
What's the ASX code for?
It's ALV, first three letters of the company, Alvo. Yeah, Alvo in Portuguese means target. So that's where the name comes from.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much. That's your
pleasure.
6.5 minutes of fame. And sorry we couldn't give you more, but yeah, would you put your hands together, everyone, please?
Thanks, everyone, and thanks for letting me pad.
Oh, where are you going to be? Are you coming to Cocktails this evening?
I'm coming to Cocktails.
Oh, he's coming to Cocktails this evening. So if you'd like to speak to him a bit more about the subject, then you can. Thank you. Thank you. I'll go back to this one. Sorry about that. You're right, Shane? Up the back there? Okay. That was good, wasn't it? You never know what you're going to find in a conversation. So you laugh at me all you like, but you're going to be up here next and you'll be having a chinwag. Are you coming up next? You are. Oh, that's better. That's why he's laughing. Okay, well, let's focus on you, Darren. Sorry, Matt. This is Darren Cooke, everyone, and Darren is the Chief Executive Officer of AuTECO Minerals. So they are a gold exploration company. They're focused on advancing the high-grade Pickle Crow project. I love the name of that little project.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
It is. It's a great little name. Yeah. And Pickle Crow obviously is going to be is it a Indigenous name given to?
It is actually, and there's a township nearby called Pickle Lake, because apparently the lake is shaped like a pickle.
I believe you. Okay, so we're going to Canada for this next presentation. Would you please make welcome AuTECO Minerals CEO, Mr. Darren Cooke.
Thank you, and I'll start off by saying it's a real pleasure to actually be here in person this year, because I actually did this conference last year and did the presentation. However, I was trapped in hotel quarantine and had to do it virtually. So it's great to be here outside of Mark McGowan's prison camps finally, and great to see that the world's getting back to normal. All right, so look, it's a great privilege to be here to share the AuTECO story. And look, we really do believe that we are one of the most exciting exploration plays on the ASX at the moment. And hopefully after this presentation, you'll understand my passion and enthusiasm for this project. But look, there's three key things that you can take away from this presentation and the reasons to invest in this project. Firstly is the location. Secondly, the asset itself. And the future upside. It really is a growth story, and look, you know, the sky's the limit for where we're at the moment. Location wise, we're in Northern Ontario, tier 1 jurisdiction, great place to operate, really good infrastructure from a servicing point of view, you know, so year-round access. Even though it gets quite cold there in winter, we can get there all year. The asset itself is centered around the historic Pickle Crow gold mine, and that was one of Canada's highest grade producing gold mines. Historically, they pulled out 1.5 million ounces at a grade of 16 grams per tonne, and that was all with air legs and handheld mining and shrink stoping. So, you know, it has a long history of producing high grade gold. We have a little mill out there. It's pretty small. And we also have some underground infrastructure that we can rehabilitate if we need to access the underground. But what that does to us is it gives us optionality in terms of how we get back underground and get this thing back into production. And then the really exciting part of this asset, the reason we're here, is the growth potential. So we currently have one of the highest grade 2 million ounce resources globally. So we have a resource of 2.2 million ounces at a grade of 7.8 grams per tonne. And we've achieved that through drilling 140,000 metres since we've had the project since March 2020. So, you know, it's our company philosophy that we invest in the drill bit. We don't have offices in Canada. We've got a small, modest office that we share in Perth, and we really believe in putting money into the ground. It's not only that resource that we have, but we have a large land holding. And, you know, for those that have seen my presentations previously, I keep saying that we've got a whole mineral district and not just the Pickle Crow deposit. And I'll show you through some of the reasons and my logic behind those statements, because we really are starting to show with the drill bit and with our field activities that this thing has the potential to be a significant camp scale play, and there's more deposits to be discovered in the entire district. So look, just in terms of the corporate overview and where we sit, I could cut and paste this graph for a lot of gold companies at the moment. We recognise that gold is not the flavour of the month, and it's been very difficult times for those of us in the junior exploration area. But there's a couple of things that really stand out and things that we're very fortunate for with our register. One is that we're very well funded. As at the end of June, we still had $17.4 million in the bank. So we can comfortably dial up what we do, dial back. And unlike a lot of the juniors out there at the moment, we are under no pressure to raise capital. So that gives us a big advantage in terms of where we're at. Market capitalization is about $91 million at the moment. So it's quite healthy. And look, the other thing that's been great is we've got a very strong institutional support. So, 39% of our register is institutional, led by Bank of Nova Scotia, 1832. Some large funds, Franklin Templeton, have come in recently, and we've got a very good supportive register. And even though the share price has been coming down, our top 20 has actually been increasing its position. So that's really refreshing to see. So look, we're very bullish on what gold's going to do, particularly in the new year, in the new quarter. And our view is that with the results that we've delivered, we'll be well positioned to ride the market back up when things do change. Just in terms of the board, I won't spend much time on this, but it's got a very much a Bellevue flavour to it. Obviously, Ray, our executive chairman, Steve and Mike have all been involved in Bellevue Gold previously. And I guess the way you could describe AuTECO was the attempt to do another Bellevue in North America. And myself and our chief geologist, who's down the front here, Juan, are both from a Northern Star background. So, we both experienced firsthand the importance of counter-cyclical investment. When Northern Star grew from where it did, it bought a lot of assets and it invested in exploration when no one was interested in gold, right? And then during the next up cycle, you really saw the rewards for those efforts. So, we're very bullish in terms of that. Just in terms of our environmental and social governance, really important to us, and we have some benefits of working over in Canada as well. We have hydropower on our property. So, in terms of green energy production and on all the decarbonisation, we can be one of the cleanest gold producers globally on the basis of that power that we have running right through our property. We really value our culture and diversity. We have very good relations with the Mishkogogum people. And we're very proud of the fact that even at this early stage of our company's life, we have a very strong female participation rate and Indigenous participation rate in our workforce. So, that's ingrained in our culture from a very, very early stage. Now, just in terms of the growth strategy, I'll make this very clear. It is a two-phased growth strategy, okay? So the way we're going to grow this company is firstly through regional discovery, right? As I mentioned before, we've got 500 square kilometres of ground, and we truly believe that there's potential there for new discoveries, and I'll go through that in the next slide as to why we're so confident. The other phase is the near mine growth. So not only do we have that amazing exploration upside, but we've already got one of the highest grade resources globally in our pockets at the moment at the 2.2 at 7.8. So look, what to expect from us in the next few months, the real key things that we're focusing on, the regional discovery. And the reason that we're really focusing on that in the next few months is because it's very seasonal in Canada. It is easier for us to move the drill rigs around when the ground is frozen solid. So we like to drill in winter, and it's very counterintuitive to tell people we'd rather drill in -30 than +30, but that's the way it is in Canada. And it's best to access those regional areas during the winter. We'll be working on a resource update and continuing to grow the 2.2 million ounce resource. We haven't forgotten about that. And from the results that we've been seeing, we are very confident that will grow. And then the other phase that we'll talk to is we want to get underground to infill drill this deposit. It's really important to do. And, you know, no such thing as a drive for exploration. You always eventually use it for production. So we're very keen to investigate the most capital effective ways to get underground and unlock the value in this deposit. So look, just in terms of where we are globally, I won't go into the geology too much. I am a very passionate geologist and can talk about this all day. Key takeaway from this particular slide is that the rocks that we're in Canada are very similar to the rocks here in Western Australia. So we're in something called the Superior Craton, which is a fancy word for really old rocks. And look, we're in the similar rock types in Canada. So it's very familiar to us over there. You could put this in Kalgoorlie and it would be very similar in terms of the deposit styles. Like the Kalgoorlie area, it's broken into a number of different zones. And the key takeaway from this is we're in elephant country, because the same belt of rocks that we're in hosts Red Lake that Evolution have been involved in. And it also hosts the Great Bear Dixie discovery that they just recently sold to Kinross for $2 billion. So just in terms of being in the right address, we're in it. Now, there's two styles of mineralization here. It's not just the narrow quartz veins. That's what the old timers mined. But we also have another style of mineralization, which is a broader, slightly lower grade, as you can see there, but more amenable for bulk mining. So what we expect to see when this thing does develop into a deposit is that we'll have a combination of selective, narrow, high grade ore supplemented with a more steady state bulk mining, open pit or underground, slightly lower grade banded iron contribution. And we think that will really help the economics of the project out moving forward. So with our in-mine exploration, we're looking for both these narrow veins and the banded irons. So look, this is the regional exploration potential. And when we got this project, we had about 160 square kilometres of ground. And one of the things that we've really taken on board, and this is probably our Australian heritage, if you like, is rather than just looking at the deposit as a postage stamp, we've taken the big picture approach and decided to pick up the entire northern part of the Pickle Lake greenstone belt. And like with all the orogenic deposits that you get here in Western Australia, it's very common that you have multiple parallel structures. Yet the Pickle Crow deposit itself acted like a black hole for the exploration and all the money and all the drilling that's been done. And that came at the neglect of these parallel structures. So inside that little green box you can see there, there's the 2.23 million ounce resource and the 1.5 million ounces of historic production. And there's very limited work done outside of that. So look, the guys during the summer period have been out, they've sampled, and we've just released some rock chip samples. We did some drilling at winter and made a discovery at a prospect called Talia, where we got 5.5 meters at 18 grams, well away from the resource. But the key takeaway for us is that when you look at these rock chip samples that we released last week, is that those structures are fertile. We know there's gold in there. There's some historic holes around there that do have great historic results in them. You can see at Metcalf, 1.8 meters at 66.9 historically. We've confirmed that those veins go to the surface. And, you know, we're getting out there when the ground freezes this winter and testing those targets. So we're very bullish about what we're seeing there. Some of our recent drilling on another parallel structure called Cohen MacArthur returned a result of 2.1 meters at 92 grams per ton. And that's well outside of our 2.2 million ounce resource. So, you know, the potential for discovery and future resource growth from that regional area is significant. Not only are we looking on the greater tenement package, but there's still opportunities to grow in the mine area. And there's a lot of results on this page. I'd encourage you to download the presentation from the ASX platform. But, you know, that resource will grow. Very confident of that. We've discovered a whole heap of new vein sets there. Our drilling's really focused on discovering new veins and structures in the top 500 meters that the old timers have left behind. If you think back to when the old timers were mining this, they had an 8 gram per ton cutoff, right? There's not many mines that even operate at that these days. So all of that dirt that they've left behind between 2 grams and 8 grams really does form a huge opportunity for us to take advantage of. So as I mentioned before, the resource growth, we're putting out a new resource probably towards the end of this year or early into next year, but it's looking very promising. At this stage, it's inferred, and that's the nature of these narrow vein deposits. What we really need to focus on for the next stage of the evolution of this project is getting underground to infill drill it. Very similar to the Bellevue story and what they've achieved. So we are looking at different options at the moment to get underground to infill drill this deposit. We know there's a prize there. There's enough drilling to indicate that. But what we really want to do is unlock it from underground. And what the old workings do for us is give us some optionality. There's a drive 228 metres below the surface that gives us 2.7 kilometres of strike. And the dream is to get in there and re-access that. There's a number of ways we can do that. We can rehabilitate old shafts. We can do an exploration decline from surface. But if you remember back to that bulk material I was talking about, we actually have optimizations and potential open pits there. And what may be more capital effective is to mine a pit first and then decline off the base of that. So we're looking at those different options to get back underground. So look, just to wrap this up, what you can expect from us in the next 6 months is a lot of activity. The guys on the ground, our team in Canada and in Australia are doing an absolutely fantastic job. We're going to really use these winter conditions to focus on the regional discovery and following up some of those fantastic hits that we've had. So expect to see some good drill results in the next few months. The resource growth, we're working on that update. There'll be some more drill results coming out shortly that will demonstrate the potential for that to grow. Following up our Tyson vein discovery, which is a series of sack veins. One of the hits that we released in May from that was 7.8 metres at 17. We've drilled some holes to follow that up and pretty excited with the prospect of what that's going to look like. And then review the underground options, how we're going to get underground and give the market some clarity on our thought process around that. But key takeaway to remember is we have the flexibility to preserve capital. All right, so look, wrapping it up, in summary, great location, tier 1 jurisdiction and tier 1 in every sense of the word. Fantastic asset with a long history of producing high-grade gold. A significant upside. I wish I had more time to talk about it, but come by and see Juan and I at the booth, and we're happy to talk about it all afternoon. And we've got a great team and a strong commitment to the environment and social responsibility. Thank you very much.
You just didn't let out of my voice either, do you? So he was stuck last year. And I forgot that when I saw you down there. He was stuck in a hotel room. Who came last year? Who of you here? There's a couple of us. Do you remember this poor man was stuck in a hotel room, as he was saying? And I remember you had a big picture behind you. What was that picture
That
of?
picture was the Hazelden jetty, which was really ironic.
So have you gone for a walk on the Hazelden jetty this time?
As soon as I got out of hotel quarantine, I went to Hazelden just to relive smell the ocean. And I was 10 days into the quarantine at that stage and starting to go a little bit stir crazy. So,
oh, did you? I was going to say, because you kept saying you watching or listening to him talk, and he's a geologist with 30 years experience, and you could see it when he said, there's one point there, and we're not filming this anymore, so it doesn't matter. But he said, he looked up and he was talking about the dream. And I thought, I thought about you in that hotel room for your 2 weeks. Did you get people to post you rocks and things? What happened for a geologist?
I actually bought some rocks back from Canada with me, so I had them to keep me company for 2 weeks. It was great. Yeah.
I thought so. See you, Darren. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We all did interesting things, didn't we? All right, thanks so much, Sharon. Henk Ludik is coming to join us on stage now. This man has a very good sense of humour. And usually when I get bios from people, I like to cut them and make them shorter, and they're not particularly exciting, but this one was very exciting. So listen to this. Henk Ludik was born at a very young age. He's an ex-investment banker, mining engineer, where he spent time mining 3.5 k's below the surface, an aspiring golfer, where he spends most of his time in the bottom of various sand bunkers, with more than 20 years' experience in deciphering complexity in all of the above. Today, he's here, though, in his role as Executive Chairman of Suvo Strategic Minerals, the only operation of its kind in Australia with hydrous kaolin operations. In fact, they actually have a world-class portfolio, do they not, sir? In silica, sand, kaolin, and HPA assets. So you, I believe, were attracted to the optimization and the development opportunities. When I first read that, I thought it was going to be like some Miss World thing following on. You were attracted to the optimization of the company, but it was more an actual technical term. Yes, I do appreciate that. And I went backwards. Right. Now, Suvo believes that it can play a role in the emerging green economy while continuing to produce premium industrial minerals for the Australian and also for the international OEM market. Would you please make him welcome, this man who was born at a very young age with a very good sense of humour.
All right. It's great to be here today, and it's great to be speaking to you so shortly after a filling lunch. So allow my soothing voice to help you explore probably one of the best kept secrets on the ASX. So Suvo is a dual commodity focused listed ASX company. We've been listed in this guise for just over 2 years. Kaolin and silica sand is not something that gets people out of bed very excited in the morning, except if it's on the golf course potentially. But the way that we're looking at the commodity set is we have an operation in Victoria. It's been running for 50 years, and the nuanced opportunity, looking specifically at an industrial mineral play, is that you can actually do things with the commodity. It's not purely copper or nickel. And that's given us an opportunity to look at how do we retrofit our product to fit into this emerging green economy. So we'll be spending a bit of time on that. The Patong operation is 50 years old, and there's things north of 50 typically go, and I can say this because I'm almost there. It needs some care and maintenance, and we are busy with an optimization study there to take it back to a nameplate capacity of 60,000 tonne per annum. We've had a bit of a refresh of the board earlier this year. I joined as initially an interim non-exec chair and then subsequently as an exec chair. But we'll be touching on the faces who fills those seats a little bit later. And then everything that we do is ESG and sustainability focused. So we believe that the circular economy, where you operate these world-class assets on a sustainable basis, but also create commodities for the emerging green economy, are critically important to ensure that we're going to be there for the next couple of decades, which is supported by our respective life of mines. So the red pimple there, that is Patong, and it's an absolute gem of an asset that we were able to vend in 2021. So I'll speak to you about that in a subsequent slide. But the Suvo story is a very simple one. We have an operation, we are selling products, we understand the product set, we understand the prices of the product set, and we have a book of off-takers who understand what it is that we do. We are looking at expanding our earnings, and we're looking to do that in a niche and novel way. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit from a decarbonisation perspective, but there's also opportunity to basically curb our costs, pull that back in, and really become a earnings generation play in this space in the near term. So that's very exciting. Given the complexity of the portfolio, when you look at it from the outside, it seems to be quite complex, but it's actually quite simple. We are looking at diversifying into the green economy, but we will still service the traditional grey economy. This is a little bit up. Is that better? You could have just said that. All right, so let's start with kaolin. What is kaolin? Kaolin is an alumina silicate, so quite an interesting commodity that's used in a wide range of applications, which I've just jumped the gun on. There we go. So the global supply is about 27 million tonnes per annum. The top 10 countries in the world who are producers supply pretty much 84% of the product set. And you would see one of those countries is the Ukraine, where they had to shut down the operations and send about 255 people home due to the conflict with Russia. The USA has faced some tremendous challenges with exporting products, so that's created an opportunity for us to capture some of their more traditional clients. And China have basically mined out some of the premium resources, so they're coming towards the end of life of mine, which implies that there's a gap left by the Chinese for us to potentially pursue. That's quite exciting, but the Chinese also decided it's a good idea to export a 12% levy or to levy that new export charge. So that's an interesting opportunity for a small emerging player such as ourselves to capitalize on the specifically the Asian market and Southeast Asia. From a global demand perspective, we've seen growth across all sectors: automotive, primers, cardboard, pharmaceuticals, paper packaging. Paper packaging is a very interesting one. Interestingly enough, that's continued growing because of e-commerce, and e-commerce just going through the roof. And the CAGR of 5.5% on the traditional uses is quite exciting for us. And the market value of the sector at this point in time is about $3.1 billion. So it's a large, substantial market. We only produce about 25,000 tons at the moment. So even when you go up to full nameplate capacity, we won't move the needle on that supply-demand balance. There's really a spot where you've got to get this thing in. So from a segmentation perspective, what we've tried to do is to understand the back. Am I the first one to battle like this?
Yes.
Oh my word.
It's very funny.
There we go. So from a segmentation perspective, what our Patong operations allows us to do is to pretty much have a look and see at where do the value in our price basket sit. So the Patong operations, the block in red there, we've been producing paper, cardboard, rubber, ceramics, inks and pencils and pharmaceutical products from that operation for a long time. So as part of the segmentation, we've had a look to see where else we can extract value, new emerging exciting opportunities such as metakaolin and HPA are high premium, high value products, which we've really spent a lot of time working with third parties and partners to develop the product set and the product offering there. So the likes of Curtin University and Calix are working with us on metakaolin. And then HPA, we are busy with the transaction there to effectively see how we can create that as part of our value proposition. Metakaolin is basically just a flash converted form of kaolin. So it goes through a flash calciner. The flash calcine product is then used as a pozzolanic. That is then used to replace your traditional clinker in cement. Now, the opportunity there is that the cement sector contributes to about 8% of annual global emissions. So it's a great opportunity for us to start looking at how do we actually have a material impact on the carbon footprint of that sector. You would have seen that the big names in the space, Boral, Adbri, all the others have published fairly aggressive decarbonisation roadmaps. And the Australian government recently then announced the government climate change bill, where the mandate is to reduce emissions by up to 43% by 2030, below the 2005 numbers, which is a very aggressive target. Now, we believe that EVs will form a part of that decarbonisation play. We believe that renewables has a role to play in that. But seeing that metakaolin has been around since the 60s, we believe that that as a pozzolanic and other similar pozzolanics has near-term opportunity as well to form part of that solution. We are in the process of vending into a HPA technology. This is a novel technology developed by Dingo HPA. The technology will allow us to use recycled materials and effectively then produce high purity alumina from that. The high purity alumina sector is a fledgling and emerging sector where we believe that the value will probably move double digits, 27 or 21.7% according to market research. Within the next 5 years. So the product is used in lithium-ion batteries as separators. It's used in LED technologies, and obviously it goes into EVs as well. Another emerging use for this is it's used to produce sapphire glass. So it's effectively the glass used in mobile devices, which is also tremendously rapidly growing sector. This is the big differentiator between ourselves and our peers. It's the fact that we can say we are actually doing this as opposed to we are going to be doing this. The Patong operation is a 100% owned entity. We've been operating, and it's been in continuous operation for 50 years. We've been operating it for just over 2 years. It's supported by a multi-decade resource. And we have kicked off an optimization and upgrade piece on the operation, which will be commissioned in Q1 2023 calendar year. That will allow us to go back to nameplate capacity of 60,000 tonne per annum. and the target production from that's about 50,000 tonne per annum. Now, from a production guidance perspective, it's quite exciting that we expect that not only will our production go up, hence our revenues will go up, but there's also an opportunity to bring down our cost base in the near term. You can see, similar to other mining companies and operating companies in the space, our cost inflation has been fairly shocking. The price of water, gas, power, labour has gone up tremendously over the past 12 months. And with the increased production, we will be able to bring our cost back to mid-$300 mark, which is very exciting for us. In addition to that, there's also an opportunity to fairly rapidly move into a space where we can further optimize that as we introduce new technologies and potentially automation to reduce the labour in the energy intensive component of that. So this is just a snapshot of our current book of sales. As you can see, the off-takers are well-regarded, very diversified names. And the basket there is primarily focused on the paper and the lower-end cardboard market, which is quite exciting because that provides us with an opportunity to shift the new volumes into the premium side of the basket. The chart on the left there basically shows the opportunity to move from a $400 per tonne product, which is the paper product, to $700 to $800 products, which will shift the weighted average price of our basket very dramatically in the near term. We are in discussions with a number of potential off-takers, and we are negotiating a whole range of product sets, but we are seeing substantial volumes coming from paints and ceramics, which will be a game changer for us from a margin perspective in the near term. Metakaolin, as I've mentioned, that typically sells between $530 to $850 per tonne. We see a big opportunity there with the decarbonisation play in the cement space, but we also think that there's an opportunity for us to grow our footprint in the pharmaceutical and cosmetic space in the near term. So a bit of a sizzle in our portfolio. You've seen the foundation, and the foundation is quite simply that the earnings coming out of Betong will be sufficient to sustain the rest of our development and operations. Gabon is a kaolin project in WA. It's on cleared farmland. It's close to infrastructure, rail. We actually have access to a heading, an all CBH heading. And we also intend to build a hydrous processing unit there. We've tested the material for suitability across a range of users, going from ceramics to metakaolin. And as soon as we've cracked the nut on the off-takes, this is a project which will be fast-tracked for development. From a silica perspective, you would have seen that this is a sector where the UN recently started talking about the concerns around the sustainable sources of silica sand. It's the widest consumed commodity on the planet, about 17 kilograms per person per day. And we see that the global demand's outpacing the existing supply. Countries like China have started mining their beaches, which certainly raises a lot of red flags. We in the Pound Seeds to potentially push our Eneabba and Miche projects forward. Eneabba is similar to what we've seen from a Cape Flattery, Northern Queensland, from a quality and scale perspective. And that will enable us to produce into everything from foundry to chemical production sand. The Miche project, which we'll be voting and finalising the deal tomorrow at the EGM, that will potentially enable us to move into the glass manufacturing and silicon metal space, which is very exciting for us. This is just a snapshot to show you that it's very exciting near-term projects with multi-decade resources close to infrastructure at various points in the feasibility study pathway. And then recently we signed a private land access at our Eneabba deposit. So we've got a red portion there of about 250 hectares, where I believe we've got the permission of works approved recently. So we hope to roll a couple of drill rigs in there and start exploring that to build up our inferred resource potentially indicated in the near term. Once again, a great opportunity. We're close to rail, close to port. There's power, water, and infrastructure on site, and it is a high purity silica sand. And then from a corporate perspective, we are looking at how we can be a socially responsible company. We've got a new ESG committee, which we established in 22, where we've revised some of our HSE practices and we've updated training of our workforce. We are looking at ways to decarbonize our operations. The energy and water conservation initiatives will also help us to control and maintain our costs at a more reasonable level. And we are looking at the silica sand tailing facility down there, which is potentially something we can process and sell to glass makers in the region, which is a very exciting opportunity for us from an ESG perspective. And then the last one is just a snapshot of the board, who are certainly not employed for their looks. That's the board as they stand today. Specifically want to highlight Dr. Ian Wilson, who was actually an exploration geologist at our Patong operations, and he's been a critical part of the team when it comes to an experience, knowledge, and capability perspective, specifically in something as complex as kaolin. And I think that's a wrap.
Good on you, Henk. Sorry about that, mate. And I did give you an extra 2 minutes at the end there.
I do appreciate that.
For the bits and pieces. So apologies for our tech. We've just gone, I'll go and do something terrible to someone up the back there. I'm sure it wasn't our fault. Couldn't have been the technology. But thank you very much for that.
Not a problem.
Cheers. Yeah, so I did hold up a little bit there because as some of our other presenters will know, it's all about the presenter, the presenter, the presenter. We don't like me being involved in what we give to the ASX, so we cut me out anyway. So I thought it was just easier to print it up. Right. OD6, come on up here, sir. Now, this is a group that is deploying a very unique little pre-mining, if you like, before they hit their potential pay dirt. They're an explorer. They're eagerly awaiting at the moment some rare earth drilling results at their Splinter Rock project, which is here in Esperance, or near Esperance, here in Western Australia. They are more than optimistic following the initial results. When do you jump on board? Do you jump on board?
Now.
This is Brett Hazelden, and he's the MD and the CEO. Please make him welcome.
Hang on, everyone. Thanks for your time. I've got a hot pink presentation for you, so hopefully we'll wake you guys up. I saw Murray was sleeping before over there, so hopefully Murray's, I'll keep you awake this time. So location, Esperance, just north of Esperance, we've got two main projects there, Splinter Rock on the right-hand side and the Grass Patch project on the left-hand side. Both looking for rare earths. They've been found in that area in the past, and I'll go through that shortly. But to give you a bit of a size and scale on that, that Splinter Rock project, that's about the size of the Australian Capital Territory. So already bigger than the Canberra, and Grass Patch isn't far off it as well. So plenty of size there. Close to existing ports. Esperance is a mining port and also an agricultural port. So there's iron ore going out of there. There's a whole heap of different grains and wheat and cereals going out of there as well, along with a few other different commodities as well. So near a port, near roads, and we're chasing rare earths. Everyone talks rare earths. They're normally talking NdPr, which is neopritium and praseodymium. So I won't try and say that too many times, but we'll say NdPr or rare earths. Why are we interested in rare earths? Well, lithium's always the flavour of the month at the moment. Prices are through the roof, but to run all these electric vehicles, the wind turbines and everything else, you need these high-powered magnets. And those magnets, there's about 2 kilos that go into an EV and about 500 kilos that go into a wind turbine. So massive forecast demand going from 50,000 tonnes up to 250,000 tonnes over the next 15, 20 years type thing. So big annual growths. But the key is there's not too many mines in the world, and I'll touch on the mines on the next slide, but there's a massive market imbalance that's forecast going forward. So we're going to need multiple mines, not just from Australia, but from around the world to actually meet these EV demands going forward, and also the consumer products out there as well. So the little smart tablets that are there, your little earbuds that go on your head, even your reverse cycle air conditioner, they all use NdPr magnets in there. Where does the current supply come from? China. So the Chinese were smart. They've been developing this industry, sort of looking forward for a fair while. They've also got a little bit coming out of Myanmar as well, but Australia's really only got Lynas. That's an operational mine in Australia. So that's the opportunity there. Lots of demand, supply. We need multiple mines coming out of not just Australia, but around the world as well to make this happen. And the governments are looking, Tesla's looking, all the other major players in the world are looking for these rare earth supplies, and also to be green. So being in Esperance, there's lots of wind down there. If you've ever been down to Esperance, it does blow a fair bit. There's also solar, and then Twiggy's down there looking at a hydrogen plant. So quite a big little hydrogen plant down there. So for us, what can we become? Potentially a green rare earth supplier. that suddenly ticks a lot of the boxes going into the European car markets. Why we're looking at it, so about 15 years ago, the guys we've got around 3 directors or 3 ex-directors looked at the data that was in the mines department. So they've gone and mined the old information from 10 to 15 years ago to figure out, is there any resources that have been forgotten about to a large extent. So here we go, there's a 30-kilometre cross-section there. It's hit 1,000 plus trio, so 0.1% total rare earth grades in multiple different locations across that whole area. So we've got an area that's 30 to 60 kilometres in width. It's all, we believe it's coming from the granites that have been then weathered over multiple millions of years into the clays. So some of the largest known target areas. And there's some historic results. So we've just finished drilling now. I'll touch on that in a sec, but we've virtually done an infill program on these areas here. So you can see we're not just 2 or 3 metres in thickness, we're between 10 to 37 metres in thickness, which is some of the thickest intercepts that you'll actually see in the rare earth industry. And it's clay hosted rather than hard rock. So the hard rock, a little bit higher grades, but a bit more expensive to process and more capital. The clay-based ones, lower grades, but because it's already down into bug dust effectively, easier to process, easier to recover as well. So we've got multiple areas there. That's a 10-kilometre scale that you can see on the side there. So that there. So you can see high-grade cut-offs in purple there, 750 ppm plus, and the red ones are 300 ppm plus. And this is just obviously a historic line. We don't even know if this is the best locations yet. But what we're looking for is areas like this, low stripping ratios. These are low stripping ratios as well, and high grades to obviously get stuck into things. We've got a drill program. So we've just finished nearly 6,000 metres of drilling over just under 192 holes was done in the end, over 100 kilometres in length. So not only have we done the length coming down historically, but we've also done a new line on existing roads. So we've limited ourselves from just listing on the ASX in June this year to getting on the roads, getting some quick results out there, and then getting some flyover information, which I'll touch on in a moment, to look at where the next best spots are to actually go drill. So we'll get some good results. They're imminent. We're obviously waiting on the labs, the program's there. So if you're a punter, there's a good punt there for you potentially. What else are we doing? We've also got a plane up in the air down there at the moment. So he's going to be down there for the next 2 to 3 weeks. They're going to be doing these electromagnetics. And effectively what they're looking to do is identify the clay locations, the expanse, the depth, and then the thickness across the whole set of tenements. And remember, we're dealing with the size of the Australian Capital Territory here. So we're trying to narrow down to the best parts that have the lowest cover ratios and the thickest arrangements. It's not going to tell us if there's actually rare earths in the ground, but it'll tell you where the clays are at least. And why are we doing that? We've done some work with Sciarrone to reprocess 3 old lines that are there. So those white lines there, and there's a cross section looking in the middle here. So we know there's a drill hole there. That drill hole there is 32 metres of trio at over 1,000 ppm. So 32 metres, that's a big, thick intersection. I'm not sure you'll find too many other people will get those. And then what we've been able to do is with the airplane that flies across, it's looking for conductivity. So it's, if anything's not conductive, like a granite or a rock, it won't hold the water. So it's generally not conductive. So that shows you where the granites are. And the conductive areas generally are the saline areas. Clay holds lots of water and generally saline water in those areas. So effectively what that's doing is telling us on that slide there, there's 8 kilometres of potential strike length of clays in that area there. So this was in conjunction with CSIRO that we've done it. We're now flying 400 metre spacings. These ones were 20 kilometre spacings. So we're actually really narrowing it down to then be able to target the best zones that have the lowest strip ratios, as you might see there, going forward. We've also got another tenement or another area of grass patch I mentioned at the front. So this is our sort of Splinter the Rocks, the flagship grass patch is our secondary project. It's got some of the highest NdPr or rare earth elements found in water in the areas or in Australia, actually. So there's a reason that that's there. We've got to figure out what that reason is. We've got to figure out what the sources are. We're also flying that area there. That'll be done in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then we'll get the results on that, and that will actually help us inform the best parts to actually target at grass patch. So plan work program, there's 2 slides here. So there's a time frame slide here. This is, we obviously just listed in June. We've already completed the drilling, the geophysics, so the clay mapping, so the planes flying on both projects at the moment. We get into the assay results that will come out. We'll get the MET testing coming through, and then straight into some more infill drilling, resources and scoping studies. So that gives you the timing there. And here's a really hot pink one, so hopefully everyone's awake by now. Drilling done, clay mapping happening. Metallurgical testing is going to drive a lot of these projects going forward. It's not necessarily the most simple processing technique, but for us, it'll be effectively dig it out of the ground like a mineral sands mine or a alumina mine, stick acid in it in a leach set of reactors like a CIP, CIL, you'll see in the goldfields. It'll sit in there for 3 to 6 hours, and then hopefully we'll then get 50 to 70% recoveries is what we're looking for. That's generally what's being seen in the market at the moment in those areas. We then separate the solids from the liquids, and then the liquids will hold the rare earths in them, and that's what we then produce to a concentrate. That concentrate then gets sold into the next step markets effectively, or hopefully a downstream processing market, because the world's screaming out for other downstream processes outside of China. In terms of the corporate snapshot, so the board there, my background, I've actually developed things. I've taken it from this phase, virtually working out of your house, through to actually developing a mine, constructing it, raising hundreds of millions of dollars to actually from debt and equity side of things. So from that background, that's myself. I'm also a metallurgist and developer of not just a potash mine, but also iron ore mines and copper mines as well. There's a couple of other smart people up there as well. So Dr. Darren Holden and also Dr. Mitch Lone. So one's a smart geoscientist that obviously has pulled a lot of this together. Dr. Mitch Lone's also a chemist as well, a metallurgist. So smart from that. I can't forget Piers, who's sitting over there. He's a smart accountant apparently. So we'll see how he goes. So really tight structure, 100 million shares on the market. So we're not a billion share type plus shell or anything else like that. We've held up reasonably well from what's been a choppy period since we've listed. So we're sitting at about 19 cents at the moment. We've got $7 million in cash as at the end of the quarter. So we're not looking for any money anytime soon, and we're actually going to have some really good drill results. So what does that mean? $12 million enterprise value for something that we know there's some rare earths out there. We just got to figure out how much is out there. I think we've got an elephant by the tail. When you start talking multiple tens of kilometres in one direction or another, we could have a big resource out there, and we'll obviously do that and delineate that over the next 12 to 18 months. So key highlights. Lots of demand out there at the moment. So think lithium, think rare earths. We need lots of demand for cars. I've just brought myself a little Tesla as well, so I'm helping to contribute to the demand. So there's 2 kilos that I've just contributed. Drilling's confirmed. Just done some. We've seen lots of clays. Now, is there any grade in clays? We don't know yet, but we'll hopefully see there. But the historic results show that there was 32 metres in some of the holes at over 1,000 ppm. Airborne geophysics will hopefully target us going forward to where the best, lowest or shallowest, thickest areas are going forward. And that's going to be across all of our tenements. And then, as I say, 30 by 60 kilometre areas, if we can narrow that down to a 10 kilometre by 10 kilometre area with 10 to 20 metres in thickness, you suddenly get hundreds of millions of tonnes. And we don't have to put any money in infrastructure. So there's already Esperance Port there, there's already roads there. We're in big ticks in the boxes there. And finally, if we can then harness the wind energy, if we can then harness solar, and then hydrogen is also in the area as well, we can actually be a green player producing rare earths sustainably. That then feeds into obviously cars and everything else. So the Europeans will hopefully come knocking on our doors. And I will mention there's a couple of other guys in the area as well. So AuTECO Minerals, Mount Ridley and heavy rare earths. So this is actually turning into a province. And hopefully there's a couple of us that get up and running, and we can actually get a downstream processing facility situated in Esperance to actually start producing some of these materials going forward. There you go. What you got?
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Mr. Hazelden. Brilliant presentation. And as with all of our presenters, you can go out and have a chat with them. We can catch up with us this evening at drinks as well. Has anyone been out to a place called the Fraser Range on their travels? You've been out to the... It's magnificent, isn't it? Sit on the top of the range, you just look out. You're lucky enough to be out there filming a few times. And they had it was actually found 1870. when Mr. Forrest went through or found it was mapped by him, but then a couple of years later, it actually opened the Nullabore's first sheep station out there. So 500,000 hectares, I think it was. But of course, over the years, people have identified that there's some other good stuff, not just the view hidden out there in the Fraser Range. There's a lot of potential out there. And our next company is one of those investigating that very seriously. This is Mark Wilson, the MD of Legend. And he's here to tell us about his company, Rockford's project in the Fraser Range in Western Australia. It's one of, as he said, one of the most underexplored nickel belts in the world. Would you please make Mark very welcome, everyone?
Thank you very much for the intro, Chrissy, and thanks to Stewie and his team for putting on this arrangement before conference. It's just, I love the new audience that I have in front of me when I compare it to talking at the industry conferences in town in Kalgoorlie. This is quite a different thematic, and it's just lovely to see you all here and be able to share Legend's story. So our project is in the Fraser Range, and this photo in the lead slide is of our little camp at Mawson, which is basically a place where we can house 15 or so men. It's where our drill core's processed and stored, and obviously a very small footprint for a very big bang for your buck. Our usual disclaimer, the presentation today will be a small bit about the nickel market. I'd like to then run through Legend, our corporate details, the investment case, details of the project, and then a summary. The nickel market commentary is really quite intriguing to me, and I've found myself, ever since we've been out in this project from 2015, just quite consumed about nickel, and it's a thematic that has been active and alive and growing, with the electric vehicle battery market being an increasing consumer of the nickel product. But fundamentally, nickel is used in the production of stainless steel. And this pie chart that I've got here represents the total consumption of nickel by first use on the globe. And in 2020, that was 2.4 million tonnes. And if of that 2.4 million tonnes, the battery component was 8%. And if we then fast forward 1 year to 2021, that pie has grown to 2.8 million tonnes, 85 million tonnes. And importantly, the battery component has grown to 13%. And even though the stainless steel consumption component reduced from 73% in 2020 to 69% in 2021, it is still the major consumer of nickel globally. But I guess the reason the batteries are so important to me and to other nickel explorers and producers in Western Australia is the nickel that we look for, with the exception of Murrin, which is a lateritic nickel up near Leonora, Leinster. We're looking for nickel sulfides, which is the electric vehicle battery component, or compatible nickel, which is so important, and it's the high value nickel. I'm a great believer in facts, not forecasts. I believe that forecasters fit into two categories: those who don't know, and those who don't know they don't know. And so basically, when I'm giving you presentations on nickel, I like to stick to the facts. And this graph on your left-hand side is a basic deficit and a deficit below the line and an excess above the line. So you can see from January 21 through to March 22, with the exception of one lone month, the entire global nickel market has been in deficit. That really explains, in basic economics, why the price of nickel has risen over that length of time. There was a particular moment, which really isn't highlighted on this slide, but there was a lot of short selling in the market in early this year, and the price rose astronomically as the big shots smelt blood and went for the kill. But that's settled down, and nickel's now come back to $10 a pound US. And I think the important thing about that is the Nova nickel mine, which is the producing mine in the region that we work, is producing nickel for $1.25 US a pound. So when you look at the margins in that, they really are quite astronomical for a mining operation. And that's why I believe Legend's story is about the size of the prize, and we're in an area where we can make a difference. Our capital structure and financials are really a key part of our story because it's about the people. Our top shareholder is Mark Creasy with 30%. IGO has 13%. It would be remiss of me if I didn't acknowledge the passing of Peter Bradford over the weekend, who was IGO's CEO. He was enormously influential in the growth and development of the Fraser Range and in nickel in particular, and he'll be sorely missed by all of us. The third largest shareholder is me, and I've bought all of my shares on the market. And then David Bailey, who's another high net worth from Perth. And you can see our top 20, which rounds out at 63% of the company. We really do have a very tightly held structure with people who know about investing and know about the Fraser Range in particular. Our current share price gives us a market capitalisation of $110 million, and we're carrying cash of $12.2 million as at the end of the September quarter. No debt. We've had a new addition to our board recently, Hilary McDonald, who's current company secretary and legal counsel for Northern Star. She knows our project, she knows our team, and we think she'll be a great addition to the board. But also Oliver Kitty joined us a couple of years ago, and Oliver has a decade of experience in the Fraser Range area. And within this group of people, we actually have the discoverers of 3 of the 4 occurrences of massive nickel copper sulfide in the Fraser Range. And in Oliver's case, with his previous employment with Creasy Group, and me as a shareholder of Sirius, we both had ringside seats for the development of Sirius from the discovery onwards. So you really are dealing with the people who've got exploration success in their DNA, and we've got great expertise and success specifically in the Fraser Range. Michael and Derek are also top 20 shareholders, so you get a very clear picture of people with skin and passion in the game. The investment case for Legend, I've spoken about our people, joint venture shareholder, major shareholders in Creasy and IGO. We've got a very large land holding, which we'll cover later in the presentation. I've already talked to nickel, our cash position. You're always going to hear a systematic exploration approach story from Legend. Our discovery of the Mawson prospect in 2019 really set our share price alight from that 4-odd cent level through to 20 cents. Unfortunately, it didn't follow on to a commercial accumulation of what we were looking for. We've been bashed up by the market like most other people in this space. And I really say that if you're looking for a leverage buy at the right time, that share price, basically, if you can't work it out from there, well, I'm sorry, I can't help you. We're very serious about our ESG, and I'd encourage you to go to our website to get that. Where we are, 300 kilometres east of Kalgoorlie. I think the important thing about this is you can catch the 6:30 plane from Perth. You're in Kalgoorlie, driving out of there by 9 a.m. You're at the Kitchener turnoff, which is just here on the Trans-Australia line. And the Trans-Australia line, by midday, which gives you half a day's work on the project, And the Trans-Australia Railway line is a great transport corridor to get our product to market. The picture slide of the landholders and the stayers in the Fraser Range is very interesting. This map was put out by Hartley's in 2014, and you can see Grandma's patchwork quilt of all the bright-eyed young people who thought you found a conductor, drilled it and had success. It doesn't work like that, and fast forward 2 years, Legend staked its claim here. That one's bounced on me, but anyway, leave it at that. And by 16, we've increased our footprint. A lot of those other people have got a stitch and gone home, and IGO has started mopping up the stragglers. And fast forward to today, you can see that the majority of the holding in this prospective district is held by IGO, and Legend, with a very dominant land holding in the central gravity anomaly. And I'd invite you to come out to our table and talk to Oliver, who's here with us today, about the significance of that. This is where the Mawson prospect is. It's a 16 by 6 ellipse, a cluster of intrusives, and this is where we made our major discovery in 2019. The significance of this discovery is really about the size, and the actual massive nickel copper sulfides sit in this little area here. But the sheer scale of that chonolith, and don't worry about the numbers you can't read in those reds, they're all 1% nickel. And as the price of nickel and the demand for it appreciates today, that becomes more important. Our major exploration activity for this year and last is really about doing 3D seismic surveys over Mawson, where the seismic is a sound wave, and I've got a little bit going on with this in these next couple of slides, where quite a large articulated truck presses a plate into the ground and emits a sound wave. You then have 8,300 reflectors set out on a 12 by 12 grid across this 6.5 square K area. And each sounding is picked up by each one of those receivers. And you can imagine the amount of data you get from that. This is a little video of the seismic truck in action. So you can see you've got a pretty heavy piece of equipment here. And if you listen to the sound with this, you'll hear at the back end a pitch increase of sound, which isn't the mechanical sound, and that's actually the seismic wave going in. That's him coming in now. So he's off to do his next sounding 18 metres down that track. That's the footprint that he leaves. And this guy in his control cabin, there are 2 of those units operating across that area, split in half. So one truck's doing a sounding while the next one moves. This one does a sounding and the next one comes ahead. It's a pretty impressive operation when you see it in the field. And those receivers I talked about are these little yellow gizmos here with a receiver in that silver prong, which is poked into the ground, a data card and a battery in his hat. At the end of the survey, each of these are plugged into this bank where the data is harvested, and that whole collection operation probably takes 6 weeks. But importantly, the processing of the data, because the volume of it, takes the best part of 5 to 6 months. And it's interesting, the presenter who's following me is actually talking about technology where they've successfully reduced that time in the oil and gas space. So it'll be interesting to hear him. The product that we get is this cube. So it's when we talk about finding the structure, you can see that very distinct line diagonal going down here, which is the Mawson fault. We've drilled holes into this, and we're very comfortable that we've got new data to plug back in for the reprocessing of that, which will lead us then on to this octagonal survey, which is another prospect of ours where the data collection is happening now. I think the key takeaways about octagonal, it's a fertile intrusion. We know there's nickel copper sulfide there. We know it's at the margin. The seismic is going to give us an interpretation of that structure. And if we can identify where the bottom of this intrusion is, that could well be the key to our prize. And you'll note Chalice today made comment of the significance of seismic in one of their new announcements at their Julimar project. In the meantime, we've got our regional work of target generation, of air core drilling and innovative EM. We've got a team of experts who feed into us and enable us to punch way above our weight. I see Nigel Brand and his wife from Geochemical Services are in the attendees today. Please come and talk to them. You would just be staggered at the level of sophistication of our analysis to see where we should be going. That's our work program, mostly seismic and target generation for the moment. And the journey for Legend, I hope you've heard, is the right place, the right people, cash, and people are passionate to grow shareholder value. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. You managed to get me in there so that I didn't even look at my buzzer. So it must have been very interesting. Hey, and I was listening to what he was referring back to with the seismic processing, because we've got a double act coming up to finish this particular session. And it has to be that way because this is a really big topic we're about to talk about. This is DUG Technology, and they're specialising in solving the world's most complex big data problems using high-performance computing, and they're owning and operating some of the largest and greenest supercomputers on the planet. So its roots are in that seismic processing that Mark just gave us the example of then, and he mentioned then as well that it had its roots in the oil and gas industry and also the imaging in the oil and gas industry. So it now works across life sciences, space, education, research, and also the public sectors. And these two guys are going to explain what it is and why we should jump on board. So would you please make very welcome their chairman, Frank, and their CFO, Sam. Welcome, fellas.
Thanks very much for hanging around, everyone. I've been sitting in the audience all day and listening to some really exciting opportunities, obviously, in the exploration space, and thinking, how do we fit into this conference? And Mark, a minute ago, gave us a fantastic introduction. But when I think about how we fit in and what are the common themes, I think the common themes that DUG brings is that we understand geology. So geology is where we started. We're based in West Perth. A lot of people here are based in West Perth. We have a big R&D focus. We spend all our money on R&D and making sure we're innovators in the industry. And most importantly, as we've heard, particularly from Mark and others this afternoon, we have a lot of upside in terms of where we are today in our business and where our share price and market capitalisation is. So I hope you hang around and just listen to our story. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, and then Sam's going to follow on. Our MD, unfortunately, couldn't make it. This is Matt. He's the big fella on the in that photo there. And we thought, well, it takes two of us to match one of him, so we should be two people doing this presentation. So what is DUG? Well, at its heart, DUG's a team of the best geophysicists, mathematicians, and software developers that Matt and his team has been able to assemble over the years. And they're experts at the interrogation and analysis of data. And this started in the oil and gas industry, but as you'll hear during this presentation, it is now evolving into lots of other industries, as Chrissy mentioned. It's a great story. It's a WA story. Matt founded the business with Troy. They're both PhDs out of Curtin University. They founded the business in 2003, and we listed it in August 2020. Not a great time to list a business that gets a lot of its revenue from the oil and gas market. But we made it through those challenges of COVID and the oil crisis. And now we're in a position where we're looking to capitalise on some of the areas that we've been working on for many, many years, including the high performance computing space. So our focus historically has been on supporting oil and gas companies in the processing of seismic data. Mark, I hope we can do that for you in the near future. And Brett, I think earlier, who was talking about aerogeoscience. And that enables them to make decisions about where to put that well. You know, wells cost a lot of money to put in, and the work we do enables the big majors and other oil companies to exactly get the right positioning for that well, which saves them obviously a lot of money. And as I say, we've recently broadened that to other industries. There's been a lot of talk about ESG in every single presentation that I've heard today. You'll be glad to know that we run some of the greenest supercomputers in the world, utilising our patented immersion cooling technology. If you want to hear a bit more about that, please come and see us at the table. But it is an amazing development. Our in-house R&D team developed that, and we also focus on software development and enhancements. What are our business units? What do we do? We segment our business into 3 business units across 3 product lines. The first of those that I'll talk about just briefly is the National Security and Space product line. This is new for us. It's a really exciting, you can imagine the sort of data that comes out of space. It's a new and exciting business for us, and a new exciting market for us. And moving forward, we've been focusing on that space for the last 2 years, with some really interesting opportunities that are coming up for us over the next few years. Oil and gas is our predominant market, still is, generates the majority of our revenue. So we're very happy to see that market come back over the last 12 or so months. And enterprise is everything else, essentially. And examples of things that we do in the enterprise market will be for research organisations such as CSIRO, manufacturers such as Austal. We also work with most of the universities across Australia. Sam will touch on the product lines a bit more later on. Our uniqueness is that we can combine our product lines together in a single delivery platform that we call DUG McCloud, and that offers clients a secure and seamless service. As I said, we spent the last 14, or Matt and his team have spent the last 17 or 19 years on spending lots of money on R&D and development. Sam's going to tell you about a really exciting development that we put to market earlier this year. That Mark gave us a bit of a preemptive too, but DUG's success to date has really been about that technical excellence and innovation. We're already a major player in the oil and gas space. The seismic imaging market, we're 3rd largest seismic imaging processor in the world. We can take a much greater share of that with the technology that we've just developed. And as I said, Sam will give you an update on that in a moment. Seismic data sets are just massive. You people in this room, particularly the geologists, should know seismic data sets coming out of oil and gas are just huge. The handling of such large data and being able to interpret and provide intelligence to our clients over the years has given us a great foundation to apply those learnings to new industries for high performance computing. And that's where we're spending a lot of time. Our high performance computing centres, as you can see, this is one of them here on the right-hand side of the graph. The slide, are amongst the greenest on the planet. Our unique oil-cooled solution that we patented helps to save 51% of the power of a traditional data centre. And of course, the move to ESG has made that, very interesting for lots of companies to want to be talking to us about. We have a world-class R&D team based right here in WA, developing new technologies and software enhancements to stay ahead of the competition. That HPC space, we saw a lot about, CAGRs earlier from a whole lot of people, but that HPC space, this is the forecast growth rate of that space out to 2026. This is why we're chasing this space with the HPC developments that we've made over the last decade or so. And also the events of the past few years have put us in a fairly unique situation. governments are looking for making sure that their data is held on country and processed on country. And that's the reason why the national space security and space area is very interesting to us. We're very uniquely placed to deliver that to government and other providers. So the increasing HPC market, as I said, is a great opportunity for DUG. We've been operating HPC for a very long time. We're very good at it. We know what we're doing. We can handle big data sets. We're not an AWS, if I can make that very clear. We are not a data center provider. Our data centers are used for us and our clients to be able to manage their very large data sets, and we assist those clients to make sure that those data sets run efficiently on our platforms. The size of the data sets, as I said, is huge. They dwarf the oil and gas data sets, dwarf the majority of other cases that we've been working on recently. We understand and can support our clients with algorithms and code development. That comes from having your mathematicians and your geophysicists and your PhDs in your business. And we have a number of instances. Hopefully we'll be able to share one or two of those, or Sam will be able to share one or two of those in the time we have available to us, where we've enhanced code to run problems over 100 times faster than was previously able to. Mark alluded to that. That's happening now. We've developed that technology, and with our HPC, we're taking that to market at the moment. The world is focused on ESG. I've sat on a number of superannuation boards over the years. It's, the primary thing that we talk about or have been talking about over the last 4 or 5 years. DUG runs some of the greenest supercomputers in the world. Cybersecurity is a highly topical thing to be talking about at the moment. But again, unlike many other providers, we offer our clients bare metal access to the network, meaning that absolutely nobody else can access that data. We are global. This is our footprint. We have 250 staff across the globe. So it was started in the shed, as I said, in Subiaco in 2003, 2 people, 250 people today, all done out of Western Australia by 2 PhD students out of Curtin Uni. It now has offices in Houston, London, KL and Perth, about 100 odd people in the Perth office. Our biggest computer is Bubba, that's housed in our Houston facility. And Bubba, for those of you that know anything about computing, runs 21 petaflops, has 21 petaflops of computing capacity, which makes it basically the biggest supercomputer in the Southern Hemisphere today. We also have computers in our computing centre in KL and in Perth. If you're ever interested in seeing any of that, just come and see us at the desk, and I'm sure we'll be able to arrange a tour for you. We have a planned HPC campus that we'll be setting up in Geraldton. I know Brett was talking about wind power, solar power and hydrogen. And for us, Geraldton makes a very good sense in terms of building an HPC campus because of it's a very windy place, isn't it? If anyone's ever been up there. And that will most definitely dwarf anything in the Southern Hemisphere. The country shaded orange on the map are where DUG has performed service projects, and the black dotted lines are DUG's global network. And that's really important for us. It enables us to move projects around the world as required and keep our business running without any interruptions at all. These are our clients. It's a snapshot of some of the people that we do work for. You can see at the top of the screen, you've got the software business and the services business, and you see a lot of oil and gas 4 minutes providers in that. Sam, you're going to have to really go through yours. That's a bit unfair, Chrissy. Yeah. And then in the middle, the new HPC clients. So the likes of CSIRO, the universities, and people that are working with big data sets. I'm going to hand over to Sam now, who's going to give you a brief overview of some of the things that we've been talking about. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. So I'll be quick. So what is HPC? HPC at its core is really the processing of huge amounts of data at very fast speeds. And data is getting bigger. It's estimated that by the end of this year, there'll be 97 zettabytes of data globally, which is expected to double in 3 years' time. 1 zettabyte is 250 billion DVDs. put that into context. HPC, our business is young but growing. So in respect to our FY 2022 financial year, we delivered $4 million of revenue from HPC. And as you can see, it's a nice growing trend there. As Frank mentioned, we are very green from a HPC perspective. So the average data center is air-cooled. They cool it with air conditioning units. Very heavy on power, very heavy on harmful synthetic refrigerants. So we use 51% less power than a traditional data center, and also 85% less synthetic refrigerants. So it makes us very green, makes us very cost competitive as well. And the wonderful thing about being immersion cooled in oil is that our equipment doesn't run out very quickly. So we can run equipment economically for a long time beyond what a traditional data center can. So that's great. Security is a big thing for DUG. It's our highest priority. So very recently we were accredited for ISO 9001 and 27001. To our knowledge, there's no other pure play HPC provider in Australia that has those accreditations. The next step for us is to look for a DISP certification, which enables us to access defence markets. One of our product lines is our software business. So our software business is really supporting our services industry, but we also provide it as a software as a service to major oil companies and also to smaller providers. So we've got 150 customers across 36 countries in software. Great recurring revenue stream for us. It generated $6 million for us last year in revenue. Our services business is our biggest business line. $24 million in the last financial year. It's about 70% of our workload. We've got geophysicists across our 4 different locations that Frank showed you on the map. But I'd like to try and spend a little bit of time on this. Sorry. So this is our new technology. We call it FWI imaging. So traditionally, it takes 9 months or 6 to 9 months to get seismic processing imaging data out of the data that's being acquired on either land or marine. We've actually found a way to shorten that time frame to throw lots and lots of compute at that problem. And we can bring those timeframes down from 6 months to 5 weeks. And what you see up top is as a major oil provider has done a lot of internal work themselves, and they've got what is actually a very good picture, and they spent 2 years getting that picture. We ran it through our system, and we got that in 1 month. So we believe that we can show potentially better results, but certainly faster results, and enable oil companies to go to production much faster. Final slide, I think. So we recently released our quarterly financial results. We printed our best revenue numbers for 2 years at $11.2 million, and our best earnings numbers for 3 years at $3 million. We are cash flow positive. We're very low net debt. And we've got strong financial backing from our bankers, CBA, with a 2-year facility. I think that about wraps us up. Hey, Chrissy. Thank you.
I do realise you have a lot to get through there. So is that whole presentation going to be up on the website?
Absolutely. It's on the ASX. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. So you'll be able to see the whole thing on the...
And we're just out there for more questions.
Yeah, and you're going to stay for drinks.
We absolutely are.
Because we're going to be a bit late now. That's okay.
Thanks, Frank.
That's right, I know.
Appreciate it.
And look, if we're in that situation again for any of our presenters, and you feel like you want to keep going and you're the last person, stick your hand up, tell everyone that, say, I'm going to keep talking, and you can go to afternoon tea if you want. But I have to keep them to a schedule. But it was really fascinating stuff. Would you not agree? Yeah, it was really great stuff. Thank you so much for that. Team, I'm not speaking anymore. Go forth, have a cup of coffee, tea, whatever else sweeties is out there. And I'll bring you back at about 5 minutes to